think that what would be useful for us to share in this session now is that anytime we experience a crisis, there are other perspectives, that is, those from outside, but also our own internal perspectives change over time, and with whom we're speaking and when we speak. And so there's a lot to learn from sort of refracting about any particular experience. So what we'd like to do is offer a very simple free write opportunity, or a free think opportunity, if people listening to this are not interested in writing at this point. And we're going to think about and think through any time during the COVID-19 pandemic. And each one of us is going to remember a crisis within the larger crisis. And we have a number of questions that we'd like to offer to guide a free write about a crisis inside the COVID-19 crisis. Diana, do you want to read those questions?
So using these questions as a guide to your free writes, consider, what did your body feel like? What does your body feel like now as you remember that time? Who or what else was there? Maybe people, objects, landscapes, anything that comes to mind. And the last one, what else was happening in the world at the same time? Whether politically, in the family, in the community, it's up to you.
So we have decided to do this exercise so that people watching have an opportunity to understand what it looks like. And I think one of the things that we're going to share those now with each other. And I think what I really want to emphasize is I really did write mine in 3 minutes. And I do feel a little vulnerable sharing it with you, Diana, but also with a larger group of people, because it isn't perfect. I didn't think about it in advance. I didn't edit it. But we really want to emphasize that this kind of writing is just to stimulate your own creativity, to be in the moment, to be awakened by what comes out of you. And it's not important writing. However, there is something that happens in the sharing of it, even though it's not important writing, that itself can be important. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that process, Diana?
I think you covered it all, especially that aspect of vulnerability. We were speaking a little bit earlier with Alex, how there's something really powerful in creating something that's raw and unpolished. And that in itself is an act of power.
So will you share your free write with me, Diana, as a way to model what this looks like really when you just go for it?
So my free write, based on those questions that I just read out, is the following. During the third wave of the pandemic, my sister and her partner, who live in the same city as me, got COVID and bacterial pneumonia. While she seemed focused on caring for him, we were all extremely worried about her, as it was the sickest she had ever been. My body felt helpless. I didn't know how I could help or support her. The severity of her illness also made me feel vulnerable, as it was a reminder of how weak our bodies can be. We are not invincible. Thinking back on it now, I feel uncomfortable, but also in awe of how our bodies can surprise us with being stronger and more resilient than we think. During that time, active participants were my sister, her partner, my parents who are in another city across the country, my pet rabbit, and the friends that I had shared my fears and concerns with. In the world, my sister and I were both completing our master's degrees. And on a side note, I'm very happy to share, she submitted earlier this year. And the country was also trying to deal with the more lethal third wave while still recovering from the effects of the previous ones.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that with me. And, I'm really sorry to hear of the waves of impact that this crisis, this pandemic has had on all of us and on you and your family. So I'm glad to know that your sister finished. And I know that you are actually in an Airbnb finishing your master's. So yes, congratulations about that. I'm going to share my free right now. When I was sick with COVID in March and April 2020, my boyfriend and I came up with a phrase, the 5 T's, to try to describe with friends what we were feeling. People outside of New York were very curious and fearful, and were trying to help by connecting with us over the phone. Right now, I can only remember 3 T's: tingling, tight, tired. Tingling, like my body was processing information; tight, because my lungs were very impacted. It was hard to take a deep breath, and my lungs felt stiff. And T for tired. I have never been fatigued like that. I had to lie down after sitting at a couch doing a puzzle. I tried to walk to the park, but only made it to the sunny bench outside my boyfriend's apartment building. I felt unrecognizable to myself. I felt like a very old lady. When I remember this, I feel my body constrict, tense up, even tingle a little. I've often felt an effervescence in my blood since then, what I call a rev, what I have read others talk about as champagne bubbles, as a symptom of long hauling. And while this is in my body, it also feels unnatural and like a signal to move or flee. It is the opposite of stillness, calm, or self-awareness. When I was sitting on the bench, I was in proximity to the sun. It held me and warmed and calmed me. It felt like a cure. There were a small number of neighbors carefully venturing out because this was during lockdown. Usually this is a busy place, a courtyard accessed by 4 big apartment buildings. But on this day, just a few wary travelers out because they needed air too, or perhaps because they were essential workers on the way to help us all. My boyfriend and children were not with me. Gavin had gone to buy toilet paper. My children were 3 miles away, taking care of themselves, but also in their own crises around school, online, interacting without a parent between them in my apartment, and all of this in a time of global fear. At this time, the city of New York was hellish. Helicopters, sirens, an aura of fear, uncertainty, calamity, and loss. But my bench in the sun was an oasis. It was also real. It was a reminder of not just what had been, but what was. My body on the earth, in this city, held by my family and neighbors for just a moment of calm and steadiness and warmth.
Alex, wow, I really felt like I could see and have a little glimpse into what your life was like at that time. And I'm so sorry. I think it will resonate with so many people. I still sometimes pinch myself that we're in this pandemic and it's not a sci-fi movie on TV, and we each have our own experiences taken from this crazy, crazy time. And I'm so happy that you're here today with us.